Welcome to the second evening of the Democratic Primary Caucus Forum, held by the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus and the Indiana Latino Caucus of the 9th District. Thank you all very much for coming. This evening, we will be hearing from our commissioner candidates, our candidates for the Indiana 62nd, and our candidates for the 9th District Congressional District. So, without further ado, I'm going to ask the commissioner candidates to take their seats up on the dais. And I want to give you all just a little bit of information. Our candidates were sent most of the questions, but not all of the questions beforehand. So if you see a little bit of a stumble, that is why. They will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes to respond to the questions, and 1 minute for a closing statement. So let's sit back and enjoy. Thank you all. Oh, one more thing, candidates, as a reminder, when you see the yellow card held by Ms. Black, that is an indication that you have 30 seconds left. When you see the red card, that is your indicator that you need to stop. And please, do not go past time. We will turn off your microphones. I promise. All right? So if you're ready.
Who goes first?
And our moderators, William Hosea and Beverly Callender Anderson, will make a few remarks. And they will talk you through the order.
So in case you haven't figured it out, I'm Beverly Callender Anderson. This
William Hosea, all-around great guy.
all-around great guy.
Can't forget that.
Thank you all for being here. I have the first question, so I will start I'll start with the question, and we'll start with you, candidate Thompson. In the past year, the existing commissioners have had a very contentious relationship. I'm sorry? Oh, that's right. You're right.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And you know, we did this last night, and the same thing happened. So,
Here to get into it.
so yes, that's right. Can you start, Commissioner?
Tell us who goes first.
Candidate Thompson will go first, and then we'll start with you, Candidate Jones. So, can you start with your opening statement? And thank you for the reminder.
Hello, everyone. I would like to thank Monroe County Black Caucus. I would like to thank the Indiana Latino Caucus of the 9th District, our moderators, Beverly and William, and all of you for taking time out of a busy week to come out here and listen to me and my opponent. My name is Dominic Thompson, and I am running for County Commissioner. I'm actually running to be the first LGBTQ+ County Commissioner in the state of Indiana because I have a strong vision to create a better Monroe County. In office, my priorities will be expanding affordable housing that works for the different communities in our county, expanding economic development that meets the moment that we are in with climate change, and creating coalitions so we can create a more responsive county government, and making sure that every voice is heard and every voice is brought to the table when we're talking about the future of our community. I look forward to bringing my experience from 3 terms as chair of the Board of Housing Quality Appeals for the City of Bloomington, with my time on the Monroe County Affordable Housing Advisory Commission, and also the time that I have spent in our party as vice chair of the Monroe County Young Democrats and with the Stonewall Democrats of South Central Indiana. Once again, thank you all for being here, and I hope to earn your vote throughout this debate tonight.
Thank you, Candidate Jones.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Lee Jones, and I'm running for re-election as County Commissioner. It's been such an honor to serve as Commissioner for the past 3+ years, and on the County Council for 6 years before that. This has given me a deep understanding of how county government works. When I first ran for Commissioner, I was excited to work on criminal justice reform. Soon after I was elected, I worked with several community members to open the Stride Crisis Diversion Center, which has given people in crisis an alternative to incarceration. I was instrumental in commissioning an in-depth study of the entire justice system, which has given us a map to follow for reform. I now head up the Criminal Justice Reform Committee. It is our intention to create a system that is truly just. A few months into my second year as commissioner, COVID changed everything. This was uncharted territory for us. For the next 2 years, we worked with the Health Department, Emergency Management, the city, IU Health, and others to bring our community through this crisis in the best shape possible, both health-wise and economically. We used grants to support businesses and nonprofits, the food bank, community kitchens, and shelters. We worked closely with the city to open an isolation shelter for the unhoused. We also funneled money to the township trustees to help people in danger of becoming unhoused. Recently, I have been able to return more of my attention to criminal justice, and I would like to have the opportunity to continue the work I have begun.
Thank you both. So now we'll get into the questions. In the past year, the existing commissioners have had a very contentious relationship with existing county departments, particularly the clerk's office, led by our first elected Black female county clerk. If elected, how do you see working with each department in the county? Specifically for candidate Jones, how do you see working with the clerk's office if reelected? And we'll start with candidate Jones.
Never had any problems with working with most of the people in the clerk's office. I find them very pleasant and easy to work with. I would not have any problems in the future working with the clerk's office. The reasons these problems have occurred is because the commissioners were asked last summer to do something that we explained simply could not be done. We could not move the probation department out of the building that the clerk wanted in time for us to remodel another building for probation, remodel the present building to be a bigger area for Election Central, and get all of that done before the election. Because of that, we hunted for other places that would work well and presented them to the election board. The election board took, I think, about 2.5 or 3 months to choose between the places that we had suggested. Finally, in early January, they chose what has generally been recognized as an excellent location for early voting. There's easy parking, it's right next to transit, it's right downtown, it's big enough for 60 voting booths. It should work much, much better than Election Central has. And I'm very pleased to have been able to do this. We had to work really hard to get it all ready, but it is now ready. And early voting started today with no problems.
Thank you. Candidate Thompson, would you like for me to repeat the question, or do you have it? Okay. In the past year, the existing commissioners have had a very contentious relationship with existing county departments, particularly the clerk's office, led by our first elected Black female county clerk. If elected, how do you see working with each department in the county?
So, as county commissioner, I would start with something that I don't believe is currently being done. I would start by making sure that every person who comes before county government, every department head, every elected official, is treated with the same basic human decency that I would expect myself to be treated with. And from the situation that we saw with our first elected Black female Monroe County clerk, she was not treated with that decency. So that would be the first point that I would mention. Secondly, I think it's important to understand that we all want to build a stronger Monroe County. We have to get past the divisiveness that we see currently with our county politics, and we have to work together to create that stronger Monroe County. And I think that starts by understanding the needs of our county departments, the needs of our elected officials. And I would just like to end by saying that I recently had the opportunity to tour Clerk Brown's office, not voter registration office that most people know, but the clerk's office. And I saw really disgusting conditions that we're asking our county employees to work in. For example, there is an employee employed by the clerk's office who can't access the bathroom in the clerk's office because it's not ADA compliant and she is disabled. We see that we're not paying our county staff enough, especially in the clerk's office, and they're being asked to live in another county than the one that they serve. I will be on the ground, seeing, understanding, and working to create that stronger Monroe County that we all would like to see. Thank you.
Candidate Thompson, we'll start with you. The next question. Can you tell us why you're running for this position?
I am running for Monroe County Commissioner because I think right now we need someone who is ready to fight for county residents in office. Right now, we see the divisiveness that has taken hold, especially at the county level, when the county commissioners are arguing with Clerk Brown, who had reasonable demands to provide free and safe elections. We see that when they argue with the city of Bloomington on the convention center for several years. We also see it in the way that the rental inspection program hasn't been brought back after a child, died in a house fire that wasn't compliant throughout the county. We need someone in office who is going to work to create a better Monroe County, a stronger Monroe County, someone who is dedicated to that. And I believe I'm that candidate. Thank you.
Candidate Jones. Same question, please.
I am the incumbent commissioner, and I have been serving my community for most of my life and would like to continue to do so. I have the knowledge and skills that make me an effective commissioner. Most of my first term has been dominated by COVID, and I would like to be able to continue to work on the things I was originally elected to do. I ran on protecting Lake Monroe as our community's only water source, criminal justice reform, and finishing the plan for the urbanizing areas surrounding Bloomington, which includes affordable housing. During my first term in office, I was able to get a lot done, but the advent of COVID slowed things down. I would like to have the opportunity to devote more time to making important things happen. Thank you.
Candidate Jones, if reelected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for Black and Brown residents?
The thing I am most passionate about that will help improve quality of life for at least some Black and Brown people is criminal justice reform. This is something I am very passionate about. I was raised a Quaker and still am one. Ever since the Society of Friends, or Quakers, was first established in the 1600s, they have worked for criminal justice reform. My mother, who was a Quaker, spent most of her life working on this. She visited the jail weekly and maintained long-term relationships with many of the people she met there. She did a lot to improve conditions, but her work left many needs for us to address. I am very anxious to carry on and achieve true reform. I believe this is the right time to do it. We know our criminal justice system frequently is not just, especially for people of color. As head of the Criminal Justice Reform Committee, I have an opportunity to create real change. The commissioners have also been working on affordable housing. We donated a large tract of land to Habitat for Humanity, where they are in the process of building a mixed neighborhood. A lot of affordable housing has already been built there. We also granted $2.2 million to United Way and the Community Foundation for their Heading Home project. The Rural Development Commission has been funding infrastructure in North Park to make it shovel-ready for development. This area is well located and has good drainage. We cannot force developers to build affordable housing, but we can offer governmental support for it. Thank you.
Candidate Thompson, same question.
When I talk on the campaign trail about creating a stronger Monroe County, that means including Black and brown voices in creating a stronger Monroe County. There are so many ways that we can improve the lives of Black and brown people that doesn't associate them with crime. I think we can talk about affordable housing, something that currently has been turned down several times by our county commissioners. We can talk about climate change and the need for a climate action plan at the county level, because we know that climate change disproportionately affects Black and brown communities. We can work to make sure that we are increasing and elevating Black and brown voices throughout our community by putting them on boards and commissions, by ensuring that we are bringing them to the table when we're talking about the future of our county, and also by not just holding constituent meetings, but going to these communities, being on the front lines, and really asking how we can make a difference. I know as county commissioner, in case you couldn't tell, I'm white. However, I recognize my privilege, and I recognize my own lived experience, and I know that is very different from Black and brown people. I will focus as county commissioner to ensure that I can represent them as best as possible by making sure I'm working with Black and brown individuals in their community day in and day out. Thank you.
Candidate Thompson, you get to go first again. How have your past experiences shaped your decision to run for office?
So, being on the Board of Housing Quality Appeals for the City of Bloomington, I have learned how rough it can be for tenants in our area. Here in the state of Indiana, we don't have great tenant rights. I know that many of you are shocked by that. I think that from that experience, what I learned is that we need individuals in government who will fight for every resident of our community, of our county. And that's one of the biggest experiences I want to bring to being county commissioner. Furthermore, I want to bring my time as the vice chair of Monroe County Young Democrats so we can ensure that we're doing the coalition building. Because if we're going to create a stronger Monroe County, we have to lift up voices. We have to find people where they are. And we have to ensure that's not the same people who tend to come out to our public meetings who are impacting our county. Thank you so much.
Before I ever ran for office, I served in Democratic Party leadership for 10 years. First, I was treasurer, then vice chair, and finally, I was chair for the last 4 years. It was while I was chair that the county, at long last, became Democratic. This experience was fundamental in my first campaign for county council. During the time I was in party leadership, I got to know many of our elected officials very well and had a good grounding in county government. I had learned how to campaign and was comfortable running for office. Serving on the council was a great opportunity. I learned a lot from that experience. While the council oversees the budget, sets salaries, and oversees job descriptions, my abilities lie more in the area of policy and administration, which are the roles the commissioners are charged with. Having been brought up as a Quaker was also a strong influence. I had been taught that being a good person wasn't enough. It is important to actually do things that make a positive difference in people's lives. Being commissioner has allowed me to do this. Thank you.
Candidate Jones, do you believe Black Lives Matter?
Of course, Black Lives Matter. It is very hard for me to understand why this would ever be disputed. I was always taught that every individual deserves respect and have tried to live accordingly. One of the signs of how sick our society has become is that this question ever had to be asked. All lives cannot matter until Black lives matter. When the time comes that all Black lives matter, it will no longer be a question that needs to be asked.
Candidate Thompson, do you believe Black Lives Matter?
I don't believe that Black Lives Matter. I know that Black Lives Matter. And one thing I would ask every candidate who comes on the stage tonight to ponder is, what does that mean? And what does that mean for your role in our government? For me, when I say that I know Black Lives Matter, it means treating Black and brown people with the same human decency that I expect to be treated with, the same respect I expect to be treated with. When I say that Black Lives Matter, I think it means that we have to do more to elevate Black and brown voices, which are historically underrepresented here in our community. When I say that Black Lives Matter, I know that that means that we have to do more, because if we want to create a stronger Monroe County, we all have to be a part of it. And I would ask that every candidate really ponder how their actions in government are impacted by knowing that Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Candidates, want to thank you for your answers to all the questions up to this point. And now we're going to ask you to take 1 minute for your closing statement. We'll start with Candidate Thompson.
Thank you all for this opportunity to debate tonight and to talk with you all. Thank you, Beverly and William. Thank you, Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus. And thank you to the Latino Caucus of the 9th District. I am excited to fight for every resident of Monroe County as County Commissioner, and I'm looking forward to building a stronger Monroe County with all of you. You can find my campaign lit outside. You can contact me at dominicforcommissioner@gmail.com. And I look forward to earning your vote throughout this campaign, and I hope I've come a long way in earning that vote tonight. Thank you.
Candidate Jones.
I would like to thank the Black and Latino Caucus and the moderators for giving us this opportunity to speak tonight. I am a longtime resident of Monroe County. I grew up in Bloomington and have lived most of my adult life in the western part of the county. I know and understand the people of this community. Before I was elected commissioner, I served on the county council for 6 years. I was on the Plan Commission for 10 years and on the Board of Zoning Appeals for 4 years before that. I was also a member of the Parks and Rec Board for 6 years. I know how local government works, and I know how to get things done. I would appreciate your vote for me, Lee Jones, during early voting or May 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Okay.
Matt, you're right here. Just a reminder for all of you, you press the light
Test him. Yeah, I got it. This one you.
Are we ready? Okay, before we get started, is it Intisari or Asari?
Sorry.
Asari, okay, thank you. She did. Well, thank you, candidates, for being here. We want to start off by having you take 2 minutes for your opening statements. We'll start off with candidate Asari.
Thank you so much. And also thank you to the Black and Latino caucuses for hosting this fantastic event. My name's Isak, and I'm from Bloomington. And I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives here in the 9th District, but you already knew that. I'm a faculty member at IU, where I direct our cybersecurity and global policy program. Now, in the history-making times that we live in, I think that it's necessary for us to go back to our first principles. What are those first principles? That we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, the chief of which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that we then create government to both establish and to further those rights, and that as a consequence, our government must be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So I'm running to make sure that the basic American contract is fulfilled for every American in this country. I'm running to make sure that our great aspirations become lived realities for everyone. And until that is the case, we know that we still have work to do. To me, policy is now and always will be personal. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm still undergoing treatment for leukemia, but I'm looking very well. Thank you very much. But I know that the policies that are passed in Washington affect us here in Bloomington, and so on everything. Policy is always human-centered. But the story of me having leukemia is not a story of woe or sorrow or defeat. It's the story of finding grace, purpose, and hope in the midst of difficulty. And I think that in the midst of everything that we're going through right now, we all could use a little hope. And so with that, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is D. Liam Doris, and I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives for Indiana's 9th Congressional District. I'm a policy-oriented candidate, and I believe in things like anti-war, anti-corruption, Medicare for all, aggressive climate action, workers' rights, tuition-free public college, and the legalization of cannabis, and many more. I have campaigned on these for the last 2 election cycles. Nothing's changed, and I still intend to get out there and get the work done, as I always have. Thank you.
And candidate Fife.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus and the 9th District Latino Caucus for hosting this wonderful event. I want to thank all of you for showing up, whether you are online or in person. My name is Matt Fife, and I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives here in Indiana's 9th. I am a public school teacher. I'm a father of 3 little ones, and I'm a leader in my labor union. And those kind of values about myself are some of the issues and priorities that we care about in this campaign, making sure that we have good workers' rights, the ability to organize, that we have high wages, good benefits, and good retirement for people, making sure that we have great public schools, and making sure that we have good health care so we can raise healthy families. Those are the things that I see in this district. Those are the things that I hear about from people in this district. And when I think about running for office in general, when I think about our current representatives off in D.C., I don't often see their priorities reflecting the things that are here in our district. But I think that can change. We can elect officials who are going to DC. We can elect officials who are everyday people. Can you imagine a world in which the people who are in DC are also the people who are here in our community, who are public servants, who are the ones waking up and working and talking with our neighbors? Our policies will better reflect our communities if that's happening. Again, I'm Matt Fife. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy you all are here tonight. Happy to hear about what's happening and talk about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First question goes to candidate Doris. Can you tell us why you're running for this position?
I'm running for this position because I, as a voter, was looking for a policy-rich left candidate who had great policies, positions, and substance, who offered more than patronizations and platitudes. Somebody who, if elected, will go to Washington, D.C. and fight for the issues that I most want. And outside of Dan Cannon running, I decided I was going to stand up and run for the position. Thank you.
Candidate Fife.
Similar to why I get up every day and work for my students at school, I think I'm running for this office because I care about my community and my neighbors. When we have to pass referendums to make sure that we have librarians and art teachers, I see policy that's not working for our community. When I talk to my family member who lost continuity of their mental health care because they changed jobs and moved to a different city, I don't see policy that's working. When I speak with individuals right now who are on fixed incomes and we see the high gas prices, when we see grocery bills going up, and yet they're worried about their housing, how they're going to pay for that kind of stuff, that's policy that's not working. Again, we need individuals who understand this, and we need individuals who are going to DC who will stand up for their community, who are public servants. If we continue to send fundraisers to DC, people who are beholden to big money interests, we're going to keep getting policies that aren't working for us. And so simply, it's because I care. If you care about people, you care about the policies that impact us and our community. Thank you.
I was diagnosed with leukemia when I was just 28 years old. And to say it plainly, I think that it's absolutely ridiculous that in the greatest and richest country that has ever existed on planet Earth, that we simply cannot afford to get sick. I'm running because the pandemic has made it clear that there are many deficiencies in the way that our government cares for people. I'm running because I'm frustrated with the inaction on climate change or our lack of preparedness for a host of future challenges that are just around the corner, from the fourth industrial revolution to artificial intelligence to other emerging technologies. I'm running because for too long, our political system has valued profits over people and special interest over the interest of the people of our district. And I am frustrated with the political polarization in this country. But let me be clear. Despite the fact that those things make me angry, and I hope that they make you angry too, I'm not running out of anger. I'm running simply because I know and am fully persuaded of the fact that when people in a community get together, any change is possible. I'm running because I have a deep-rooted belief in the American system of governance, and when we work together, we can move our community forward. So simply, I believe that we can do anything that we put our minds to as a community, and that's the reason why I put my name into the arena to run. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Fife, if elected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for Black and brown residents?
Thank you. So I've mentioned some of the priorities of this campaign, but I just want to reiterate them in a slightly different light. We need to fully fund our schools. We need to make sure that we are creating cultures in our schools that are good in the classrooms, that are creating good, that are focused not on testing and standardized testing, but focused on good classroom learning. We need to make sure that we don't have school-to-prison pipelines in our classroom. Again, that we're creating that culture where every student can learn. On the thought of family health and raising healthy families, we need to make sure that we have good, affordable, quality access to childcare. We have parental leave policies that work for all. We need to, especially here in Indiana, focus on maternal and infant mortality rates. And then, as a strong supporter of unions, we need to make sure that people have the right to organize and have good wages and high wages. Additionally, I just want to mention that I am not the sole person, I am not the person who knows what is best for Black and brown residents in our community. And so we need representatives, and I'm saying that I am one, who is willing to listen to Black and brown residents, who is willing to reach out, have them be a voice at the table, because that's how we create a better community for all.
Thank you. Candidate Asari, same question.
So I support cash transfer programs, such as making sure that we continue or make permanent the child tax credit. I also support a negative tax, or what some people would call a universal basic income. MLK, at the end of his life, had come to the conclusion that the only and best, most effective way that we can solve racial systemic violence in this country is through establishing a basic standard of living for all Americans. So I am an advocate of doing exactly that. I advocate for single-payer universal health care that will cover people from the day that they're born to the day that they die. Liam will call that Medicare for all. I don't care what you call it. I want it to cover everyone from the day that they're born to the day that they die. We know very well that Black and brown communities are disproportionately affected by our cruel healthcare system. Looking just at one example, look at Black maternal mortality is disproportionate, and having a universal healthcare system would help to address that. I advocate for transformative climate action and climate justice, because we know that climate justice is racial justice, because again, Black and brown communities are disproportionately affected by climate change and the cost that it's creating for our communities. I advocate for a digital Bill of Rights to make sure that we also have algorithmic justice, because right now, Black and brown communities are being totally kept out of the digital economy. And overall, I also advocate for reviving our democracy, including passing voting rights legislation, publicly funded elections, ranked choice voting, and ending Citizens United. Every single point on my platform will benefit Black and brown communities.
Thank you very much. Candidate Doris, if elected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for Black and brown residents?
I want to take a moment and speak about justice, not just criminal justice, but economic justice. We have a problem in this nation with late-stage capitalism, and late-stage capitalism leads to a lot of unfairness and a lot of inequality out there. Right now, we are a top-heavy nation where 90% of all the wealth and all the assets in this nation belong to about 1,200 people. For the top 1,200 people, they own even more than that. Us in the working class don't really own that much. And so whenever you go out there and you address late-stage capitalism, which I refer to as the American oligarchy, and you appreciate things like raising the minimum wage, attaching it to cost of living and inflation. And whenever you talk about raising the progressive marginal tax rates on the very wealthiest of Americans, then we're starting to talk about economic justice. Economic justice doesn't stop there, though. I'm a supporter of Medicare for all, and that right there, right now, the number one cause for bankruptcy in the United States of America is medical debt. And whenever you eliminate for-profit insurance companies and you go with a Medicare for all system, what happens is people aren't declaring bankruptcy nearly as often, and people have more money to spend, and they have more ability to actually live their lives appropriately. Right now, capitalism has us fighting over the scraps, and whenever you're fighting over the scraps, minorities get pushed out. And that's something you absolutely positively do not want to happen. Thank you.
Okay, my next question is pretty straightforward and probably calls for a pretty straightforward answer too. But I'm going to ask all three of you to take it to the next level. I want you to put some context to it, put it in perspective, and put some meat on your answers, if you will. No pressure, candidate Asari, you get to go first. Do you believe that Black Lives Matter?
Yes. Now, as you said, you wanted us to put some meat onto that answer. The answer to that question is unequivocal. Yes. It should be unequivocal. Yes. But again, the very fact that we have to continue to ask that question shows the fact that the aspirations of America, where all of us are equal and every life matters and so on and so forth, is simply not true for every American. And that is particularly the case for Black Americans. And so, do Black lives matter? Yes. Do they matter in practice? Apparently not. And until they matter in practice, the way that they matter in theory, then we have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Doris.
Do Black lives matter? Absolutely, without a doubt. As I was saying in my previous question, whenever late-stage capitalism promotes competition between people for the scraps, they push out minority groups. That doesn't just include Black lives, that includes Latino lives and every other minority, whether it's transgender, whether it's women, and it's all there. And the more that they get pushed out, the less equality that we have here. Probably the most disproportionately marginalized group is the Black community here in the United States. And historically, that's always been true. This nation has been built on the backs of Black Americans throughout its history. And the problem is that they haven't received anything in return. They were promised a lot, and a heavy burden is owed to them. And the first thing that we can do to make sure that we start to adjust that to where everything is better is economic justice. We need to have the Black community more in focus, and because here's the thing: is you don't measure society by the success of the very wealthy. You measure society by the strife of the most disproportionately affected communities out there. So whenever you recognize those communities and you strive to create a society better, starting at the ground up rather than the top down, then it is, in my opinion, the right solutions to have towards the nation. Thank you.
Yes. Black Lives Matter. And I think many of the candidates tonight have alluded to the fact that it's egregious that this is a question being asked. We need policymakers who are not only willing to move past the question, to say yes, but to also write and vote for policies that positively impact the Black community. I'll end, I guess, out of the three of us, I'll end with a little bit of a story of hope, though, too. I teach in a school every day, and we have clubs, and we have the young people in our school. I'm amazed by them every single day. We have clubs that are working to push both teachers and students to recognize the bias that they're coming into their school with, to not only identify that bias, but to interrupt others or themselves when they are identifying that bias, to educate others about that bias, and then to move forward. And that gives me hope that while, yes, this is a question today, that we can eventually vote for many policymakers who are going to DC who will vote the way that they're saying Black Lives Matter, that will vote for policies that move us forward. We have a lot of work to do in that regard, don't get me wrong, but again, I'll at least end it with a little bit of a story of hope.
Thank you. Candidate Doris, how have your past experiences shaped your decision to run for office?
Whenever in about 2004, 2005, I went to Iraq. And before then, I was not politically active. You know, I had my political leanings. I had never even voted before, though. Prior to that, I was in the United States Marine Corps. And whenever I went to Iraq and I saw the egregiousness of war and saw how things weren't equal for everyone and how corporations were massively taking over things and not treating people as they should be treated, and ripping off the American taxpayers, it slingshot me to the left, the far left. As many of you know, and some of you don't, I'm openly socialist. And seeing the horrors of war, seeing what corporations and the wealthy do to this nation has pushed me so far into the left that I became politically active. I worked for the Obama campaign and the Bernie Sanders campaign, and now I'm on the second campaign of my own. Why? Because I don't really believe that the average American working class member has any say-so anymore in the United States government. And that is something that I'm hoping to actually bring, because right now our misrepresentatives in the House do not actually represent us. They represent their large money donors. Right now, money equals free speech, and corporations are people, and I really don't think that should be the case. And I would like to go there and overturn things like Citizens United, Buckley versus Vallejo, and everything, and pave the way to where there's free and fair elections, so that the people of the United States can be represented rather than the corporations that they follow.
Candidate Fife.
Thank you. Have my past experiences led to this decision to run? So I grew up in a union household. My dad worked for a railroad for 45 years, and I didn't know it at the time. We weren't rich by any means, but we had our needs taken care of, both through benefits when my mom would get sick, needed surgery. You know, I always had a bat or a glove when going to Little League, things like that. And nowadays, my parents have a good retirement. My first 3 years of teaching, I realized, you know, that's my dream job, I think. But I quickly realized the policies we're putting in place from the federal and state level don't always match what we need to do for our students to grow up and be passionate about what they want. I went back and got a public policy degree, and so I have used that to continue teaching and be an organizer in my union, which has led me to probably one of the biggest decisions, the biggest impacts that I'm now, the reason of now why I'm running. Being in a union has taught me that you can be the change you want to be. I went through an early leadership program in my union, and the cohort that I went through it with, we often advocate with each other. And if we see change that we need, whether it be in the union or around us, we say, hey, you can be the one to stand up to do that. And so when I see these, I've spoken about them a little bit, but when I see these needs in our community, and I speak with those around me, it keeps getting reflected back. I can be that change. We can be that change. If you want to see a difference in your community, you can be the one to stand up and talk and organize. And so I think those three kind of decisions of mine or values of mine growing up have led to this decision to me to run for public office.
Thank you. Candidate Asari, how have your past experiences shaped your decision to run for office?
Thank you for the question. I've said it several times here tonight, but when I was diagnosed with leukemia, while I was being told, and at the time, you know, what it sounds like to you, you see me now, it probably, you may think similarly, but at the time, you know, it sounded like they were just telling me that I was dying. And in fact, they were. And in the midst of the doctor giving me his prognosis, a care worker came in to say, we have to talk about how you're going to pay for it. And I just don't think that that's an experience that anyone should have. In this district, there are 50,000 people who do not have health insurance. There are hundreds of thousands others who have health insurance and, like myself, still can't afford to be sick. That's informed so much of what I'm doing and why I'm running. As somebody who works in emerging technology and works in cyber policy, I've worked across government on these issues. I'm quite worried about the fact that we're not doing enough to prepare for very serious challenges that are ahead. Just as one simple example, there are currently 579,000 unfilled jobs in cybersecurity in the United States alone that we do not have people to fill. That's our critical infrastructure. That's our elections. That's our ability to continue to operate as a free and fair society that we live in. And so everything that I've done has led me to this point, to make policy personal, to make sure that we're future-focused but human-centered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, gentlemen, for your answers. Please take 1 minute for your closing statements. We will start with candidate Fife.
The U.S. House seat here in the 9th, and there's a state seat close by, are 2 open seats. We need to get excited about that as Democrats. We need to get out there and sign people up to vote, to get them excited to vote. No matter who you're going to vote for, let's get out there and do it. We can make a change if we do it together. We can make a change if we are working towards these goals that we have talked about tonight, that all 3 candidates and candidates in their other discussions have talked about tonight, and we can do it together. So I urge you to sign up. I urge you to take your time. I urge you to get out there and make a difference. Lastly, if you want more information about the campaign, you can go to mattfife.com. Thanks.
Candidate Asari.
I really want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Y hubiera dicho al principio que gracias al Foro Latino también por organizar este foro. Usted me dijo que tenía que hablar en español, entonces pues ya lo hice. But the thing that I want to say is this. The reality is that nihilism is the biggest enemy to progress. When we start believing that all of our efforts are not going to lead to change, and we stop trying, and as a party we stop organizing and we stop reaching out, we stop believing that what we're working toward is possible, then we've lost. And so my whole message and my whole reason for running is to ensure that we as a party continue to reach for the dreams that we're fighting for. Because if we do, change will come. Thank you so much for having me.
I would just like to thank the host to tonight's forum and everybody who's in attendance. Again, my name is Liam Doris, and I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives. My website is dliamdoris.com. In closing, I would just like to say to everybody out there who's ever considered running, if you're passionate about something, if you really think that things can change, don't just sit on the sidelines. Get out there. It doesn't matter what level you run at. Run. And go out there and take what is ours. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates.
Everybody in our audience, we're going to take a brief 5-minute break to check on the sound, and we'll be right back with you.
Good evening. Candidates, we are going to give you 2 minutes for your opening statements, and we're going to start with candidate Swain.
I'm Brad Swain, candidate for District 62. As your sheriff since 2015, term limits bring my 30 years plus of public service to an end. I'm running now to continue serving as state representative. I grew up in Monroe County in Arlington, here on the west side, just outside Bloomington. I attended Fairview, Dyer, now Tri-North, and Bloomington High School North. After graduating high school, I worked sometimes 3 jobs, including driving a trash truck, a janitor at the Vaughn Lee Theater. We never showed Rocky Horror Picture Show, fortunately. After driving a trash truck. Attending college was about as remote as space travel to me. My older brother, John, joined the military to become a firefighter, and he was killed by a drunk driver at the end of a shift one night. Those benefits made it possible for me to attend Vincennes University. I returned to Monroe County, became a jail officer at the old jail, moved up to through the ranks to where I am now, your county sheriff, asking you to select me to be your representative. Thank you. That was a fast 2 minutes.
Candidate Githens, your opening statement.
Good evening. It's nice to see all of you out here. I'm Penny Githens, a candidate for the Indiana House in District 62. I want to start by thanking Beverly and William for moderating tonight's event, and also want to thank the 9th District Latino Caucus and the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus. For those who don't know me, I'm a Monroe County Commissioner. I grew up in Richmond, Indiana, at a time when people of different political beliefs actually talked to one another, when there was a large network of state-sponsored hospitals to treat those with mental illness, when our public schools were better funded, and when a single wage earner could support a family. But it was also a time when there was a great divide between whites and non-whites. It was a time when those with disabilities were either pushed aside or kept at home. It was a time when too many women were denied financial independence. And it was a time when members of the LGBTQIA+ community stayed in the closet, fearing for their safety. While I want to return to better funding for public schools, better treatment for mental illness and substance use disorders, and better wages for workers, I also want to enact legislation that aligns with my values, like equal opportunity, equal treatment under the law, equal access to education and health care, and the creation of what I see as a fully integrated society. Thank you.
Okay, as we head into our questions, we are going to ask a question of candidate Githens and then a different question of candidate Swain and candidate Githens. I'll start with you. And then you'll be asked all the same questions, but to start with, they'll be different. In the past year, candidate Githens, we've seen the commissioners struggle with certain department heads, notably the clerk's office led by our first elected Black county clerk. Can you explain why it seems so challenging, why it was so challenging to work with the clerk's office in comparison to other county department heads?
Sorry. For me, it was about space that we didn't have that we could make available to people. There's not real estate downtown that we can buy to move the existing probation office into. We also know, as others have said, that we don't have good space for a lot of our county employees. We're struggling. One of the things that we are trying to do right now is to acquire land for a new community corrections facility and we hope that that will make things much better. We are working very hard to correct those kinds of things. But we've also worked very hard, I think, to provide additional voting space for people. We've pushed our department heads, other department heads, very, very hard to make the new space at election operations. I personally like Clerk Brown. I like her a lot. I want to go have, well, I know she likes margaritas. I wouldn't mind having margaritas with her after this is over. So I am really sorry that the conflict existed. I hope that we're past that. It was never our intention, or my intention at least, to have conflict with her. I do admire the work that she does, and I hope that this election cycle will prove to be one of the best that we've had so far with this space that we're providing. And we know that this is not the end. This is temporary. Thank you.
Candidate Swain, a different question. On April 17, 2021, the Monroe County Sheriff's Department was involved in the fatal pursuit of Bloomington resident Malik Ali Malik, a black man. Despite efforts made by the local media who first requested body cam videos in April, local media did not receive access to redacted videos until months later at a fee of $75 per video for a total cost of $2,475 for the 33 videos available. How does this speak to your commitment to public service on your campaign website?
I'm glad that question's asked of me as it was asked of the sheriff candidates, because I was trying to fit it in to clarify it. The fees are set by the legal department. We can charge up to $150. The redaction to do is very labor intensive with someone with that specialty. In this case, with numerous body cameras to be shown, including a Ring doorbell camera, which really helped answer some questions people had. Hours and hours were necessary, so someone has to pay for that. When we realized that was getting exorbitant, Technical Services put that up on a YouTube channel so anybody in the world with an interest could see it free of charge. We recently had an event where a person was arrested that had some national interest from last weekend. Once again, I talked with Angie Purdy as well as our legal department. Should we go ahead, if there's a numerous request, do the same thing? So that was the solution to that issue, was we realized that would be exorbitant, and sometimes you just have to find an alternative.
Okay, candidate Swain, we've seen the struggles that Democrats have had over the last several years with the Republican supermajority. What skills will you bring that will help our community?
Having grown up in Monroe County and working public safety for 36 years, which includes 13 years as treasurer of my rural fire department, I know a lot of the residents here and in Brown County. When working as a public servant, political affiliation is not considered. My time as sheriff has given me access and insight to some of the workings of the legislature. As sheriffs are communicating with senators and representatives daily when they are in session, we are respected by them for our knowledge and our political strength. We are usually the top vote getters in our counties. My public safety experience, especially my past 7 years as sheriff, will give me an expertise in which I hope as legislators come up with ideas that they will seek me out on my background and knowledge. I also operate 2 farms, and I hope that background likewise can serve me well to provide insight where anyone from either side of the aisle could come to me and seek input from me. And if they don't come to me at times, I'm happy to call them out where they're misguided.
Candidate Githens, same question.
Thank you. Recently, I was talking with a political observer in Indianapolis who said that former county commissioners make better state representatives than other individuals. We're accustomed to working with others to make decisions. We're accustomed to getting input from constituents and engaging in constituent service. We understand the many facets of government, from weights and measures to roads and bridges. And we understand the issues that local governments face. I have actually talked with Matt Pierce and asked him what I would need to do to be an effective state legislator. And as you've noted, it is hard for Democrats to get things done in a legislature that is dominated by a Republican supermajority. So Matt has said, rather than introduce bills that have no chance of receiving a hearing, He recommends that I would introduce amendments into bills that are working their way through the system. The amendments may or may not pass, but this forces people to vote on amendments, and that will spotlight who in the legislature stands for things like equality, pay equity, better pay for teachers, and Medicaid expansion. Years ago, I led the successful effort to have health insurance mandated for people with autism. I did this by reaching out to the local legislators and by connecting with allies across the state. It didn't pass the first time, it didn't matter, I kept going, right? You don't always pass things the first time. But I was also always prepared. I researched what happened in every state across this country, and I also prepared a fiscal impact study. And as many of you know, it's often not just inspiration that gets things done, it's perspiration. And I'll tell you, I'm ready to go and sweat for you.
Thank you.
Candidate Githens, the next question starts with you. If elected, what will you do to improve the quality of life for Black and brown residents?
This is a really important question. I'm a strong proponent of pay equity, and on 2 different occasions, I've helped organize local programs on this issue. You all know that women on average earn only 83% of what their male counterparts make. But pay inequity is even greater for women of color. Black women earn 58 cents for every dollar that a man earns. Native American women earn 50 cents, and Latinos earn only 49 cents. That's just not fair. One way to make a difference is the enactment of a pay transparency law, which is being considered at the national level. But I say, why should we wait? Why not do it here? Next, we need to stop the school-to-prison pipeline, which disproportionately impacts individuals of color, especially Black males. Several years ago, I attended a lecture at Fairview Elementary called The Genius of the Black Child. The UCLA professor who gave the presentation pointed out the challenges many Black students face outside of school, which impacts their ability to concentrate, to do homework. So instead of punishing a student who falls asleep in class, let's figure out why that's happening. Instead of calling out a student who doesn't know the answer, let's figure out the supports that student needs to move forward. And we also need to shift the demographics of our teachers. Currently, white women make up 75% of teachers across America. So by offering targeted scholarships, student loan repayment bonuses, and better salaries, we should work to increase the number of Black and brown teachers in our classrooms as another way to disrupt that school-to-prison pipeline. There are other things I want to address: improving maternal child health, decriminalizing marijuana, legislating renters' rights, insisting that individuals. Thank you.
Candidate Swain.
I adjusted it at direction of my wife, and then I didn't turn it on. I will always fight racism in any form, and I will seek out members of our community on how, in my position, I can make lives better for Black and brown people. I will rely on you all who have an interest in that to communicate with me. I can tell you as sheriff, I hired our first Muslim American deputy who was of Indian descent, our first Latina deputy, and have hired an African American deputy. I have a woman in the police academy due to graduate soon. 3 of my merit board members are African American, and that is just simply because they were the people we felt between the people I select and the deputies select were the ones we wanted to serve on the sheriff's merit board. My jail has several Black and brown employees. Several of them are bilingual. Every year possible since I've been sheriff, I have been a sponsor of Fiesta del Otoño and have attended before and after COVID those festivals, and it's always a great public outreach. So I'll probably be running out of time, but I just want people to know I have an open door, and I will rely on the guidance of my community.
All right, thank you. So you were here for the last panel when Mr. Hosea asked this question and asked the candidates to take it to the next level and put a little meat on it. So I am going to ask the same thing. And I'm going to start with candidate Swain. Do you believe Black Lives Matter?
I do, every single one. When people respond, all lives matter, it means they didn't understand the question. It is, the light of the question is, are you paying attention to what is going on with black people? Do their lives matter to you? All lives matter is a conversation somewhere else, but it is not giving due respect to the question. I was a big brother twice, and I asked that my match be a Fairview kid. He is African American. The deepest conversation, we fished, we did all kinds of things. Deepest conversation of race had to do was with then President Obama. He asked if I wanted him to win soon after he took office. And there may be some Trump supporters here, but hear me out, okay? I told him I did. I voted for him. We discussed that further, and we went on about the time of our match. He is now an outstanding young man. I did not have conversations about George Floyd with him being a law enforcement officer. I would hope that what was going on, that we did not have a strained relationship. So yes, Black Lives Matter, and it matters to me and people I care about.
Thank you. Candidate Githens, same question.
Yes, I believe Black Lives Matter, both individual Black lives and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think some of my experiences over the decades have support this statement. I chose to do my student teaching at Jennifer Crosley's alma mater, Gary Roosevelt High School, and happy birthday, Jennifer. Don't mean to call you out, but happy birthday anyway, right? As a Peace Corps volunteer, I taught math and science to high school students in Kenya. I have been a volunteer educational advocate for special needs students for over 20 years, and one of the very first students I helped was a black student facing expulsion. I was able to convince school personnel to keep him in school. Black Lives Matter as a movement is also important because it shines a light on the racism in America. Racism that makes day-to-day living harder for black people, living in a way that I will never, ever understand, but I want to. Last week I celebrated when President Biden signed the law that Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, making it a federal hate crime. But I also cried because that law should have been in existence decades and decades ago. I cringed as I listened to the ugly, untruthful statements some senators were making about Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I eagerly await her confirmation to the Supreme Court. But at a personal level, I've been shaken up a little bit too. I've been trying to do more reading. I've been trying to go through additional trainings. And I know I'm still going to make missteps. And so I'm here tonight to say, please help me learn. Please challenge me. Please correct me. But I do want to move along the path to a better future for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Nicole, do you want to go to closing statements? Okay. So please take 1 minute for your closing statements, and we'll start with, who did the last question? We'll start with candidate Githens.
Thank you. Thank you both, William and Beverly, and thank you to Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry. thinking too much about Black Lives Matter here. The Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus and the 9th District Latino Caucus. Many of you will remember what Hillary Clinton said in Beijing in 1995. She said, "Women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights." But during that same speech, she also said, "If women are healthy and educated, their families will flourish. If women are free from violence, their families will flourish. If women have a chance to work and earn as full and equal partners in society, their families will flourish." I believe the same is true for people of color. If Black and brown members of our community are healthy and educated, if they are free from violence, and if they have a chance to work and earn as full and equal partners in our society, their families will flourish. As a state, thank you.
Candidate Swain.
I grew up on the near west side in a fatherless home in the 1960s when there was a stigma for my mother and my brothers and I. We had a lot of challenges, eating a borrowed potato from a neighbor in the dark because we had no electricity. My mother and the rest of us strive to continue forward. I now sit in the City Hall chambers asking you to elect me as state rep. My service is beyond just my paycheck. I've served in the Lions Club as a mentor to youth and philanthropy. I now ask you to vote for me to be your state rep. Thank you.
Thank you both. And now we'll hear some closing remarks from Nicole when they stop talking.
That concludes our 2 nights of forums from our Democratic candidates. On behalf of the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus and the Indiana Latino Caucus of the 9th District, I would like to say thank you all for attending, both for our members of the public, our candidates, our elected officials, our moderators, and everybody else who may be watching at home. Thank you very much. I would like to remind all of you that there's a flyer out front which you can pick up and donate to the Latino Caucus and to the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus. You all know me from showing up at events. I'm a big fan of giving money to people. So reach out to your candidates as well if you'd like to support them. If you still can't decide on who to vote to, support all of them. Give them all $5. They need it. And in the meantime, we're here. We hope to see you at our next Black Caucus meeting. And again, thank you very much. Good night.